November 1st, 2019. Every particle in the universe follows a strict set of rules. We may not completely understand all the rules, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. If we knew the exact properties and movements of every particle and other energy form in the universe, we would know when and how they would interact with each other. We would also be able to know exactly what things were like in the past, as well as how they're going to play out in the future. Similar rules apply to objects on different scales. When you throw a baseball, if you knew the exact velocity, rotation, traveling arc, wind direction, and other variables, you would be able to know exactly where it would land long before it landed. Skilled billiard players use this same principle. When the player strikes the cue ball, it moves at a trajectory and velocity based on how it was struck. It bounces off the walls of the table or into other balls, which changes its velocity and trajectory, as well as other balls that it strikes, which in turn strike other balls. With enough proficiency, the player can know the end state of the billiard table before he even strikes the cue ball. More importantly, even if he isn't skilled enough to know exactly how the table will look after his turn, it does not change the fact that the end state was determined the moment he struck the cue ball. It seems to me that people are the same. Instead of the velocity and trajectory of billiard balls, a person's past, current, and future actions are determined by their genetics and their life experiences. People have no control over their genetics, but they also have no control over their life experiences when they are very young, which in turn sets up how they think and behave for the rest of their life. While people do change as they get older, these changes are brought on by the accumulation of life experience. That is, outside forces cause them to think or see things differently, which in turn changes the way they behave. Take, for example, the somewhat arbitrary decision of buying a blue shirt versus buying a red shirt. Of course, there are many subtle factors at play, but let's simplify it and say that the person deciding must choose which shirt to buy based on their own personal preference. If he chooses the blue shirt, we can determine why he prefers the color blue by looking into his past. Maybe he prefers the color blue because many years ago a girlfriend had an especially bad argument with him while wearing a red shirt. He may not even remember the event, but it has left a subconscious impact on him to somewhat associate the color red with something bad. We can even look further back to see the chain of events leading up to this. Perhaps he only got into this argument with his girlfriend because of his apathy toward washing the dishes. He doesn't wash the dishes because his mother always did it for him as a child, so he easily forgets to wash them. Maybe his girlfriend was only so mad at him in the first place because she had a previous boyfriend who in the past didn't clean the dishes, so she has very little patience for the issue. I don't believe that the actions of people are random. Everything happens for a reason, and those reasons are largely beyond the control of one individual. We don't have the ability to see all the influences that lead people to make their decisions, but that doesn't mean that those influences are less legitimate. It's true that people do have choices they make. However, their perception of the best choice to make is predetermined by their life experiences up to that point. In that way, choice is only a perception. By examining the person's life and how they reacted to things in the past, it's often easy to see how they will react in the future. Occasionally, events happen that have an impact on people that seem to be completely random and out of their control, but this too is predetermined. For example, while driving, your foot slips off the brake and you get into a wreck. This was all set into motion by circumstances that didn't seem important at the time. Perhaps your shoe only slipped off the brake because it was made of low-quality materials. You purchased the cheap shoe because your parents taught you to be frugal. In addition, your foot was wet from stepping into a puddle before getting into the car, which aided in it slipping. Having recognized both those issues as the reason that you got into a wreck, you will no longer buy cheap shoes, and you tend to avoid stepping in puddles. The circumstances leading up to the wreck were not random, nor are the effects the wreck have on your decision-making in the future. Everything happened for a reason, and you had very little control over it. We often confront people about a choice they have to make in the future. We tell them the virtues of making a certain choice. If they make a different choice and things don't turn out the way we perceive to be correct, we scorn them for it. We tell them that they made a bad choice. But I would say that people have very little control over the choices they make. When faced with that choice, they will choose the one that their life experiences direct them toward. Why would they listen to someone telling them to make a different choice when their instincts and experiences direct them elsewhere? If people are more or less locked into a path from the moment they're born, it becomes somewhat arbitrary to judge them. They are as they are, and they can be no other way. They won't make different choices because the other options are not perceived as advantageous to them, and the reason they perceive things differently than you are also completely out of their control. Sometimes I wonder if I should be afraid. If everything is predetermined, then what happens will happen, and there's no stopping it. I suppose that the best thing one can do is allow themselves to live as who they are and hope that everything works out. I think it might be dangerous to just allow life to happen to you, but can you really live any other way? I'm afraid that I'll become complacent, that I won't do anything, that I'll never reach any sort of potential that I have because I won't try, simply because I know that the end state of my life is predetermined. But knowing this, is there something I can do about it? Can I make choices that are different to what my instincts tell me to do because I know it will lead me down a different path? But what if the path those decisions take me down is worse for me than the path I'm on now? Even then, the choices I make to either follow my instincts or not are also predetermined, because through my life experiences, I have formed the ability to see such a decision exists. In the same note, my life experiences will determine which option I take. I think the best thing to do is just not worry about it.